Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Justin, as my actual special guest today, because looks like you are the only one logged on. And feel free to interrupt, ask questions, and be as active as you would like.
Okay.
Today is all about Perspectives art curriculum. It is Nasco's exclusive partnering with Art Class Curator. Perspectives was designed with, there we go, was designed for Art 101. And I'm starting off here that just shows how Perspectives supports a district's larger goals. So visual literacy, 21st century skills, social emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then of course, cross-curricular. And I'm going to put a little bit of an emphasis on the cross-curricular today. I love this curriculum because I feel like it elevates art education in the school and in the district to show the value of art education and to show how art education absolutely supports all of these initiatives. And right now, social emotional learning, diversity and equity and inclusion, and cross-curricular are really at the forefront because there's concern with, you know, students who lost a year of school and, you know, do they need to catch up on those things, and where, you know, where are they excelling and where are they struggling? And this is a perfect opportunity for art to be able to support all of that. The visual literacy part also has come to the forefront because in a world where kids have had screen time so much, teaching them visual literacy helps them in all of their walks of life and in their educational and academic life as well. So it really teaches them to pay attention to detail and to be better observers, and then you become better observers in life. I love also the 4 C's: creativity, communication, critical thinking, and collaboration. Creativity is obviously at the top of the list for art education, and that's where everybody thinks art education lives. But as an art teacher, and Justin, tell me your role where you're at.
I'm in Sci-Fair, and I just started a transition from elementary to middle school. So I start middle school this year.
So you are at Cypress Fairbanks. That
Yes.
is fantastic. And I will be doing professional development with you soon. And
Yeah.
so you're at the middle school, right?
Yes, ma'am.
This is fantastic because this is a great opportunity for you to see how this can be incorporated in a middle school setting. It was developed for really Art 101, but because of the way it's laid out, it's very easily adapted to middle school. So with Perspectives, the framework is curate, discuss, engage, and extend. And so curate is all of the materials that have been developed for you to take into the classroom. And you're going to be able to add to it or subtract from it and sort of develop it to make it your own. But you won't have to work quite so hard at it because it's there and an enormous amount of additional resources to draw on. The discuss really is the part that develops students to learn how to communicate, to collaborate, to be able to take content and do something with it. A lot of that is actual verbal discussion, but some of it is done in the form of writing as well.
I've noticed that in the because I've looked through the Perspectives and looked at all the different lessons, and that's one of the things I love about it.
Yes, absolutely. And the engage is of course going to be art making, but it's also going to be engaging students in a wide variety of activities as well. The extend part is going to be what are you going to do with it now? You know, how are you going to utilize what you've learned, the information that you've processed, and how you're going to implement it in your daily living. And you know, some of it is just having the knowledge, you know, just you've learned something new. Some of it is eye-opening in terms of I've never realized that before, so now I'm going to act differently. And some of it is skills that you build. And so that I love the extending part because it's more than just making art for the sake of art, or, you know, it builds way more onto life applicable skills. So this gives you a great sense of the diversity that is in, I'm making sure my notes are, I've got notes for each slide so I don't forget anything. So this is, like I said, a sampling of the artists and the artwork. And so it ties into humanities, sociology, geography, and then more beyond that. But just looking at this slide of artists and artwork, you see that you're going to hit diversity and equity and inclusion. And I know that you are from the state of Texas, so that there's some concern in terms of teaching diversity. You don't have to worry about breaking any laws, breaking any rules, anything like that, because it's going to be there. So the great news is the inclusion is there, the equity is there, the diversity is there. So students of all kinds are going to be able to relate and understand and realize that there is a wide variety of artists and art and geography out there, and it helps us to be better people. And so it's nice because it doesn't have to center on teaching something so specific that has caused issues. And you know, if I act a little bit like I'm flabbergasted by that, I'll be honest, I am. It's weird, but the great news is what I love about perspectives is this is just teaching about artists and places and art and things
Right.
and history. And in so doing, we don't offend anybody. You know, we just teach students that the world is a great big place and there's lots of people in it. And so that makes me excited. The themes are really what's beautiful about this particular art curriculum. Why art man? And they really are sequential. However, if you switch things around, it's not like steps and you'll fall down like that, but they are sort of built to kind of culminate. But on the other hand too, there's some flexibility in if you want to move some stuff around, or if you want to, like I said, add to it or change it, or if you just want to pull something out of it and talk about it. So, but Why Art Matters sort of sets the stage. The sketchbook is, while it absolutely connects to artwork as well and an artist, it really centers on art making in that particular unit. And the students physically make a sketchbook, and it's very cool. I will tell you, Justin, I am kind of your middle school student in terms of my own art aptitude, but I've become an artist because art teachers tell me I can be. And so that sketchbook is really satisfying to make, because you end up with this functional piece of art, and then you're going to use it for the rest of the semester. So
Yeah.
what artists see, human experience, identity, community, natural world, cultures, communication, and power of voice. In those 10 units, you can already see, even by the titles, that you're going to hit, like I said, all kinds of language arts. You're going to have the art making in there. You're going to have some science and math and like
Yeah.
creative writing, all kinds of stuff that attaches with this. The units include a lesson plan that's really extensive, and it follows the National Art Standards, but it absolutely follows the Texas Art Standards as well. It's going to have a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint is going to be editable. So that part's really nice as well. So you can add some stuff in there. So like if you're doing some, you know, Texas has so many great art museums too. So if you're able to utilize some of this stuff that's happening with the art museums in Texas, you would be able to put that in there. There's 2 featured anchor artworks. And this is important at the middle school level because Perspectives was really created for 9 through 12. So in the middle school, you're dealing with probably 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so 6th graders sometimes might not be able to process something a little bit more mature. There's no nudity, so don't worry about that. But there are some subject matters that might be a little bit more mature. And I know there's a couple that have a little bit more violence in it. Again, nothing that's going to compare to even like video games that they watch and things like that. So, and because there's discussion guides that go with it, you will be able to control the conversation and keep it safe. We do offer like a handout that you can give to parents that says, hey, you know, this is what we're doing this year. And there are some mature content and, you know, again, no nudity or anything like that. And that sort of helps you in terms of if somebody was like, whoa, that was a little bit more mature than what I was hoping for, you can handle that very easily. But again, nothing that isn't in front of these students' faces on a daily basis. It's artwork and it's done very well, but you have 2 choices along with a bunch of other resources, or you can even say, I'm going to put this piece of art in that I have in my class or whatever. So really adaptable that way. Discussion guides and help with that, and then multiple activities, worksheets. And then there's the theme inspired project. Not like a replica, but there's a suggested, and then there's also choice-based. And so this really gives you a lot of opportunity. And you might want to say, hey, I do want everybody to do this same thing. And the choice comes in with, you know, color and style and all that kind of stuff. Or you can also say, hey, here's the lesson, here's the idea. Now you come up with how you're going to create out of it. And so really great flexibility there. And the choice-based part becomes a whole nother level of students really having to manage their time and their resources as well. And then project planning guides. I think this is fantastic because this is just a tool that we as adults use in a work environment or students are going to need in a college environment that help the student plan those choice-based projects out. The reflection activities are part of that extend, where you are actually reflecting on what you have learned. And then of course, lots of additional resources. So here's an example of a lesson plan. And a lot of times when we think of lesson plans in art, I think of our Nasco Artworks lesson plans that are part of Nasco Educate. And it's how to do something, you know, here's the project, here's the materials that go with it, some objectives, some standards, and then all the directions on how to do it. This lesson plan has that for the project, but it also talks about the art. It also talks about the resources. It also gives a much more extensive, taking the student through the entire unit and the activities. And so I shouldn't say student, taking you through it for the student. So it really lays everything out, and it can be done as is, or you can say, yep, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take this piece and move that over here for this day. And there's flexibility within your time frame, the amount of students you have, and how you want to handle it. Because sometimes you're going to find that there's just conversation happening in the discussion part of it, and you are going to want to extend that out. And so it really is a good like outline and framework for you. Here's just sort of a sample PowerPoint and just a couple of the slides that go with it, but it basically takes you through the objectives and some of the activities and some of the discussions. And then there's always the map that shows where the artist is from, and even where the art lives now. Or if the artist lives here, but the art is reflective of like a native country or something like that. So it gives that geography perspective in there, which again, I'm not kidding you. I'm old is part of my problem, but seriously, I did not really think outside of the United States until I was an adult. That's crazy, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not that I didn't learn some of it, but it didn't quite have this, this emphasis kind of like this does. This just puts it in front of students every single unit. And I think that's fantastic. So here is a discussion guide. So you'll have the piece of art for art analysis, and then you'll have this discussion guide. And so it gives you the opportunity to look at the discussion guide and understand it, especially if it's a piece of art that you haven't seen before or that you're not familiar with. It gives talking points and the artist's bio and discussion questions. And again, if you feel like this is a piece of art that isn't appropriate for your classroom or for your school or for whatever reason, you're able to put a different piece of art in and use discussion guides and talking points. And also you would have to do a little bit of research on your artist, but for the most part, it's a great tool that can easily be interchanged with other pieces of art. And you always get those discussion guides for both anchor artworks.
Okay.
So this is just talking a little bit about the art that's related to it. This shows the sketchbook that was made, but you can see in the lesson plan, it actually shows, and my brain just went blank, but it shows an artist that has used a sketchbook. So it shows real art and a real artist using a sketchbook. And then they create a sketchbook and it's from scratch, and it's awesome. I will tell you that there is suggested materials, and it's just that, suggested materials, because some people just to say, hey, make a sketchbook, like, oh, well, what kind of paper do you use? And you know how art teachers are, like, you know, we want to know what you used, but we also want to say, oh, okay, well, you know, I don't need that watercolor paper because I have this, or I'll use cardstock. And quite honestly, in this particular sketchbook that you see in front of you, I deviated from the list of materials because I work from home and I work at Nasco. And so I was doing the sketchbook at home. And so I used 2 pieces of cardboard from a cereal box.
That'll work.
And then covered it with the watercolor paper, and the binding, instead of book binding tape, it was painter's tape. And I think that's just as an FYI, I would suggest it, because when you poke your needle through the painter's tape, real easy. And then you can always go back and recover with duct tape or anything like that after the binding is done. So there's lots of good suggestions, you know, just for the most part of how to do it, but it's very flexible. And we all know students are pretty inventive themselves, and they're going to come up with ways too. It also is nice in situations where if you do get in a virtual situation, you can recommend some different stuff. And if you ever need any tips or helps on that, both myself here at Nasco and then our partners at Art Class Curator are certainly willing to be a resource for you. So this just sort of shows it in forms of numbers, the 10 units and the 150 artworks, 140 worksheets that go with 17 countries and cultures that are represented. And again, you see that word web worksheet and the planning guide worksheet. I like to point that out because it's a lot of cross-curricular, but a lot of life skills too. And we know that that is hands down art room all day long.
They need it.
So here's a fantastic spread of some worksheets. And these are going to be definitely focused a little bit heavy on like English and language arts, where there's going to be a lot of writing that comes along with it. The discussion guide is going to give students an opportunity to learn how to present and learn how to debate and talk about, why they feel a certain way looking at a piece of art. And one of the most profound things that Cindy Ingram, the founder of Art Class Curator, said was the viewer's voice matters as much as the artist's voice. And as an adult, that resonated with me because I go to an art museum or I see a piece of artwork hanging and, my brain is looking at this artist who created something and wants me to see something, but it never occurred to me that I could have my own opinion about their art. I mean, we do have our own opinions, but for somebody to say it mattered, wow, that felt very empowering. And it gave a whole new meaning to untitled, like, oh my gosh, like this gives me the power to somewhat title it myself.
Nice.
So I really like that part of this curriculum, because it does start to give students the opportunity to express their opinion in a respectful way, in a constructive way, and use their voice and say, I find this art beautiful. I find this art offensive. I find this art, uncomfortable. And it gives us that, that's a lot of that social emotional learning too, to be able to say, here's something that we're not reacting to, something that's happening in the news right this second and reacting in a emotional, passionate way. We can talk about something that we're seeing and how it evokes emotion and then how we utilize that. And I think it's just a really great tool. And it also helps students to really look visually and see other things besides just the focal point, because there's other stuff that's happening around the art that makes a difference too, and in our world, quite honestly. So here's examples of like activities that go with, and there is a wide variety, and I'm cracking up because I'm trying to think of what slide I'm on. This is a lot of writing poems. I like the creating conversations, because you can write those down or you can have students actually verbally speak them. Sometimes acting it out or doing the motions that are in the art gets a little bit of physical movement involved, which is, crazy to add PE in there because that's a little bit of a stretch. But my point being is that you can physically get up. Yes. And so I won't go through all of these, but I will also say that because because this is a school site license,
Mhm.
you can also partner with other teachers. And I will give you the example of Debbie West. She's a retired art educator from Georgia, and she lives in South Carolina and still does a lot with art education. She was at North Gwinnett High School, big school district in Atlanta, Georgia, and their art department partnered with science and partnered with math and partnered with like some language arts like English and
Mhm.
creative writing. And what they were doing in those subjects, they brought into the art room. And one of the examples was this sort of this art journal. So what they were learning in that particular subject matter, they created a visual journal to show the things that they were learning. And it was outstanding. The creativity was unbelievable. But the fact that they were showing what they were learning so that it gave credibility on the side of the science teacher to say, yeah, they're writing the, let's just say the theory or, the findings or other scientific-y kind of things. You can tell I'm not on that side of things. But then all of a sudden they did it like with visuals that showed the microscope slides. And it was this beautiful fold out journal that had all the visual of the slides and what they found, and fantastic. So I like that the other curriculum teachers can see what you're doing because it's a school license. They also will have they can have access to Nasco Educate, which again gives them some resources for their specific curriculum. So really good engagement activities, and you can marry it with other curriculum and other teachers if you'd like. These are two that I just wanted to pinpoint because one is an anchor artwork. It's Juan Quick to See Smith. She is an artist and Native American, and this piece of art is one of the anchor artworks. And so in discussing it, you throw out those open-ended questions, you deal with the social emotional learning part of it, the visual analysis of all of the detail in there and the color and the characters that she has in there, and really observing it closely. And then the cross curricular connections, you're going to look at pattern, and you're going to look at history as it applies to Native Americans and culture and the sociology that goes over, and the humanities. Personal connections, this is a great opportunity for students to be able to connect in a wide variety of ways, especially as you read who the artist is and perhaps the meaning behind this art. And then they get an opportunity to reflect on what it means to them and how they connected with it, both before you tell them what it's all about and after they learn what it's all about, which I think is very impactful. The second piece is a really fun piece, and there's several of these kind of activities in there where you can even get like group things going. And that again is another life skill dynamic that you're teaching, but you have the group sit together and talk about the situation that has been given out. And in this case, it was a situation of a zookeeper that put all of the art materials into the chimps area, and the chimp got to paint an abstract piece of art, and that's what the chimp painted. And I say it every time, makes me real jealous because I think it's a cool piece of art. And so then one of the question becomes, is this a piece of art? And then another one is, who is the artist? And so you start having students analyze that question and come up with reasons why they think, yes, it's a piece of art, or no, it's not, or the chimp is the artist, or the zookeeper is the artist. And really good conversations come out, and often things that one student doesn't think of, another student does, and each class is a little bit different as well. And so I love that everybody thinks so differently. It's a great activity to do anytime you are being observed. I have heard that from numerous amount of teachers that have used art class curators activities before, because lots of these activities that were developed for perspectives have been used by art class curator. So while this curriculum is brand new, some of the activities are tried and true activities and then have been incorporated with. So it's a little bit of new territory, but also staple activities, staple artwork, and questions and discussions that they've used before. So it's a great combination, and you're not going to get it anywhere else, which I love. Just throwing in social and emotional learning, because it's practically become another curriculum. But CASTLE is the collaborative academic for social and emotional learning, and they are sort of the authority on the framework, which is self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. That happens in the art room. Utilizing perspectives gives you the opportunity to show how it's happening and to give actual examples of how they're getting social awareness, and how they're using responsible decision-making. And not every single activity is going to nail all 5 of the core competencies, but it's absolutely going to nail 1 or 2 or 3. And so I always think that's a really important one to put out. This particular activity I put in here for a couple reasons. One, it's a great one about social and emotional learning, just because this is, it's called Portraits of Myself, and they do this portrait sort of sculpture thing, and then they wrote all of these critiques on it of things people said about them. And so it's a great way to get students talking about, a wide variety of subjects. But the next to it, the worksheet next to it, is the Reflect and Connect worksheet. And so you start with step 1, which is a narrative of a student looking at a piece of art, whether it's this piece or any other piece, and they write down or discuss verbally what they see and what they think it means. What's the story here? What are you seeing, and what do you think this is all about? The second part is any kind of symbolism in there, does the red writing matter? Does, maybe, the makeup on this girl's eye, or the expression on her face, just a wide, the way words are written and scrolled around. So they're going to pull out symbols, and some artwork obviously is going to have way more symbols in it than others, but they're just going to look for those sort of clues that connect to what they see and how it makes them feel. You, as the teacher, are going to determine when you tell them who the artist is and what the artist is about and what the art is about. And I know that in an activity I participated in, it was at this point, like you looked at the narrative, you looked at the symbols, and then you learned about the piece of art, and then you sort of made connection with that piece of art and how it reflects in your own life and things that it reminds you of and that kind of stuff. But then the last part on the path is, what are you going to do with this information? And I love that, because in this particular case, it adds a lot to Are you going to think about the words you say when you talk about somebody? Are you going to think about what you post on social media and and how written words, when you don't speak them face to face, can be misunderstood? And so all kinds of really good conversation in terms of that. So I really like that piece of that activity, and the fact that you can utilize it with a wide variety of art. This is just a little bit of going back to the actual curriculum. You get that, you get some additional stuff, some elements and principles printable pack that you can print out and hang up. You get a lot of the worksheets, all the worksheets that go with the lesson plans. And then there's some additional ones that you can add to give out as extra credit, or maybe utilize if you have a student, and not a student teacher, a substitute teacher. So there's a wide variety of extras that come with it. And then lastly, it's all housed on Nasco Educate. And so that is in, we have just hired a dedicated person to really looking at Nasco Educate to make it the best experience possible for you. And it might get a name change and a refresh. When we do professional development for you, because Cypress Fairbanks has purchased this, we're going to take you through Educate. And Educate partners really nicely with the Perspectives curriculum, because there's lesson plans that can easily be utilized for all of those 10 units, that I think is really cool too. It's also a neat way to show students a variety of different lesson plans out there, art things that they, art projects that they can make to help students sort of get their creative juices flowing. Tons of professional development. So when we do a professional development day like today, a webinar like today, it gets housed on Nasco Educate. So now you, as an art teacher who needs to have, however many hours of PD, you can go right to Educate, watch one, get a, if you need to get a certificate from us, you can get that from us and turn it in as PD hours.
So like I get a video, a webinar that I've missed and just go back and, okay, awesome.
Absolutely. And when Educate first came out, our content was some of the content that we had on Nasco Education, which is our website. And so, I wasn't super excited about it because, it was already available and we had a few extra things on there. But over the last 18 months, we have added so many webinars, both ones that relate to the curriculum that we offer as a premium, but lots and lots that are just applicable to art education and making things. A lot of them are called Maker Mondays, where we invite a teacher and we do a ton of those. So all kinds of stuff. And there's videos attached and there's some additional resources. There's some interviews with teachers that I have done, both in art education, STEAM, and just classroom teachers. But it's just fun to listen to a teacher and hear how, how they go about teaching, and it's all relatable. So really good stuff, along with a little bit of learning management system functionality, and it partners real well with a lot of stuff that you use, and with Google Classrooms.
Okay, yeah.
I don't really need to talk about the price because Cypress Fairbanks has purchased this. I will just do a quick overview for those that watch this later. It costs $1,000 for a school site license. And so the art teacher or art teachers at the school can use it. And then anybody within the school can use it as well. So if you do partner with somebody else, they are able to utilize the license, and it absolutely benefits your whole school because it is housed on Nasco Education. And so all of it comes for $1,000. And then the subscription to Nasco Educate, which normally is $2,500 for a school, is included in the $1,000 price.
Okay.
Justin, do you have any questions?
No. As you were going, I was looking at the website, also kind of piggybacking, and I was just looking at the Maker Monday, and a little interested in that also. But no, I think you definitely were very helpful in explaining it all.
Perfect.
And yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, well, I am very excited to see you again next month and dig even deeper. For anybody who's interested in a little bit of a deeper dive and seeing exactly what it looks like on the platform, I'm happy to do that for you. Otherwise, we will do another art class curator perspectives and world mosaic webinar in August. We'll have another Maker Monday in August, and Justin, for you, you have access to the curriculum and now Nasco Educate. Anytime you have questions, I am a resource for you and more than happy to help. So thank you so much for coming today. It was a joy and a pleasure to present, and I can't wait to see you next month.
Thank you. We'll see you next month.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.